Welcome to the inner world of filmmaking. I'm your host, Tammy McGarrow. I'm an editor, podcaster, and still photographer. In this show, I will interview filmmakers in all facets of production and distribution. I'm excited to have content creator Hampton Liu, who's behind Hybrid Calisthenics, where he helps people cultivate long-term fitness where your body is your weights. Welcome, Hampton. Happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So I found you on TikTok. That's how I got introduced to you.
Cool.
And I was just curious, how did you decide to create hybrid calisthenics, and what drew you to that form of exercising?
Well, I was always really into fitness from when I was younger. And just like I grew up with a lot of people into martial arts, which kind of leans towards body weight training. So push-ups, pull-ups, squats, things like that. If you've ever been part of like a football team or a wrestling team, especially wrestling, any type of martial arts, there's going to be a lot of push-ups and pull-ups involved. So I was into that. As I became an adult, I started researching more, and I discovered the idea of progression, of the idea of like, oh, you don't have to just do a push-up and then just keep trying if you can't do it. There's different ways you can go about it. You can do an easier version, you can do a harder version, and that really was a very important piece to it. As for teaching it, there was a time period, I could really go into the story, but just to shorten it a bit, where I wanted to spread a message. And at the time, I thought it'd be a blog. I really wasn't that social media literate at the time, so I thought blogs were still a thing in like 2020. But I started it, and I heard about videos. I'm like, oh, maybe instead of typing, I'll just record myself, and that saves some time because I can probably just like turn on the camera and record and just get a message out and then post it a little faster than I could just type something out. And I can type pretty quickly, but I tend to overthink when it's something that's like a blog article, or which might be good or bad, but something it usually took me like a day or two to really get it the way I want. And that's where I started. And at the time, TikTok was an important platform. It still is. But at the time, it was really emerging, 2019, 2020 at the time. A lot of important changes happened, and it's really changed the social media landscape and just the marketing landscape, actually, even broader than that, short-form vertical video. So that's where I wanted to be. Originally, I was not on TikTok. I think I started on Facebook, of all places. So Facebook, YouTube, and then someone told me about TikTok, and I was like, oh, that's cool. What's TikTok? So I downloaded it, and I didn't completely understand the concept at the time, but I started posting videos on there. And just like everything else, you learn and you adapt.
Yeah, I love your videos, and I love how you go, hi, friends, and then you always end with, have a beautiful day. I mean, that's what caught me.
Oh, really?
It was just your charm. Yeah, your humbleness and just wanting to teach. You know, I felt like this Zen-like essence about you.
Oh, thank you.
That drew me to your videos. So let me ask you this. How often do you post your videos now?
Like once a week now. It used to
Once a week?
Used to be very high quantity. I think that's a good way to start off. I try to do 3 a day back in the day. But the production value has gotten higher. I spend more time thinking about it. And also just the social media, the way, honestly, the social media algorithm has significantly changed. We can delve into that if you like. But I do spend longer on content now.
So what do you shoot on? Do you just shoot on your phone, or do you have a camera? What's your equipment?
So I used to shoot on the front camera of my phone, which was a Galaxy S8 at the time. Really all you need for a lot of social media stuff. I mean, there might be some examples like tech or something where production value will mean more, but really just to get started, most people can start with their phone. Nowadays, I shoot on the same thing that you're seeing me on right now because I just use my camera as the webcam. It's a Sony A7 III, and that's served me well for a couple of years now.
And then do you just record the audio from your phone, or do you record it separately or on your camera?
Okay, so I use a Rode Filmmaker, I believe, wireless mic. And that was one of the things that I was suggested early on, and I was like, audio is really going to make a difference, and I think it does. Even back when I used my phone, before I got anything else, one of the first things I got was a $10 lav mic off Amazon. I plugged it in. You could see the cable because it wasn't wireless.
Right.
But I never really tried to hide that. It is what it is. I think the less we try to posture, the more secure and overall happier we are. So, I mean, there's like nuance to that, but when it came to filming, I was like, yeah, this is what I have. I have my phone because I can't afford anything else at the time. And I have a mic that I plug in.
So how has it evolved over time? I mean, from when you started and to now when you were doing your videos, I mean, did you like think about it and then film it, or did you kind of plan them out and then knock out 3 or 4 videos? Like, what was your process?
At the time, I just turned on the camera and I started speaking. Now, I did tend to have an idea of what I wanted. I think that's really important. Just like the pre-production process can be very complicated or very simple. And part of it sometimes is folding laundry and doing work around the house while you think of things. I think that's when creativity can really blossom, when you're doing these mindless tasks. I think that's like the important part of the yin and yang of the universe, where if you're not always active, when you're passive, that's when good ideas can come to you. At the time I was taking care of my mother, it did tend to coincide with lockdown, but I think unlike a lot of people, it wasn't directly because of that. I think it just happened to be 2020, and it could have been 2017, 2021, 2022, 2023. I didn't start because I was stuck inside or anything. I at the time I was taking care of my mother, I was like, well, I need another stream of income at the time. Obviously, there's relatively difficult to jump right in and start making money, but I wanted to start spreading my thoughts at the time, and it did become a business, and I'm very fortunate for that. I'm very happy to be doing this.
Now, was there any type of video that happened? Like, when did you start getting your surge of followers?
So this is interesting because I think followers mean less now than they ever have before. I think followers mean less now than they ever have before in terms of your reach, your views, everything. Possibly borrowing a few examples. I don't know, like early social media landscape. I was, like when this first started evolving, I was 10 or 11. But so my fifth video was my first video ever to get over 1 million views. That was on TikTok. And this is one of the, I think I got like 2 or 3 million, but that's an example of how followers mean less now than ever before. Because at the time I had like 20 followers or something, and my first video on TikTok got 0 views. So I couldn't even really adapt. I couldn't be like, oh, well, maybe I can change the... No, because it got 0 views. There's no data they can get from that. I was like, well, I don't know how this TikTok thing is working, but I dove right in, and I wanted to stick to it. And it was a kind of a joke video where it was called 1,000 pushups, where I didn't do 1,000 pushups. It was kind of a silly throwaway joke. It was 9 seconds. But because of the retention at the time, I guess people watched it a couple times, it started doing well. Now that got a lot of views, but it really didn't get a lot of followers. I got a couple thousand from that, just from sheer volume alone. I got like 2,000 or 3,000, but it did kind of inspire me to the potential of social media. And as I continued, I think it was like a month or 2 later on, I had a video do well. It was about push-ups. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'll start developing a little bit more, because at the time I got followers, but it didn't mean I was getting 3,000 or 4,000 views a video anymore. Once again, hitting the idea that it is no longer strictly a socially based platform, but an interest-based platform. So it wasn't until I started doing a video about posture, I believe. There were a couple of outliers beforehand, but a video about posture, that's really when I got the same amount of views. It was like 2 or 3 million. It went semi-viral, but I got a lot of followers from that because it had a stronger message behind it. It was a little bit longer, but people identified with me. They liked the message, but they also liked, oh, we like how you delivered it too. You were friendly. Now, looking back, the message, you can make an argument with some serious people in fitness that it was a little bit controversial. You could be like, yeah, well, like you're not supposed to be doing this. This won't necessarily fix your posture. There's like that's the idea of debate. Nowadays, I would tweak it. It's like a few words to make it a little bit more accurate, I think. But that's really when I started getting traction, because an important thing happens when you get those followers and views. It is not necessarily the ego boost, not necessarily confidence. In fact, I think you should try to isolate that. Confidence is good, but you don't want to get your social media esteem from likes and followers and vanity metrics. But
right.
What an important thing that happened was the comment section, and people would give you ideas of what they wanted. They would tell you what they liked, and just like people on the internet, they're very happy to tell you what they dislike. And I was like, cool. So that a lot of things that people know me for nowadays, or really any personality on the internet, or any personality period, you really aren't aware you aren't. I don't think you're really aware of how other people perceive you by the masses until you're exposed to a lot of people. Because the idea of like, oh, you're friendly, you're authentic, or the things you said, they were very kind. Where you said, oh, there's like, you seem nice, or some people say charismatic or friendly. Friendly was one I got a lot. And people, I have been called friendly before in real life. Before that, I try to keep my real life persona and my online persona fairly similar. There's like a difference in context when you're trying to get everything out in 59 seconds. But I try to keep everything fairly similar. But I really wasn't like, people don't like fall down on their knees and say, "Oh my gosh, this person's so nice" in real life. They're like, "Oh yeah, you're nice." But a lot of people are nice, right? So like the idea of like having a reputation for that, it didn't really strike me until there's like 1,000 comments. And it's like, oh, half of them say this. I'm like, oh, interesting. It's, oh, we really like it when you speak softly and really break down the ideas. I'm like, oh, cool. And these are all things that I don't want to be fake, but I want to lean into. If someone's like, hey, we liked it when you give different steps, I'm like, well, I'll do more of that. That we like it when you're friendly about this and give the idea of like, well, you can do whatever you like, but this worked for me. I'm like, I'll do more of that. And then obviously, delving a little bit more into it, there's some things like, well, we don't like when you do this. I don't like it that you're ugly. I'm like, well, I can't really help that. Is that right? Well, that's what I say. I don't. Comments about my appearance don't really bother me. But it's things like that. There's obviously some things that are criticism, that are constructive, and then there's some just negative feedback for the sake of negative feedback, of course.
How do you handle that? I mean, that's the bummer part, I think, about putting yourself out there is the negative comments that you're going to get.
I think this really speaks to the foundation of any major discipline. If you really want to be good at it, anything from like swordplay to filmmaking to anything, you talk to people who have really reached the upper echelons of their craft. Not to say that I have, but you speak to them, and like a lot of them speak to things that aren't directly about technique. Whether it's like they're gymnasts, they always tell you about exercises. They often talk about the mindset of it. And I think the reason for that is because none of these things exist in a vacuum. We have to experience and present these things as an art form, as humans, which is what we are. Like maybe there's some people, content creators are intelligent AI bots. I don't know. But like I'm human, right? And one of the foundations that we have to lie in order to truly thrive, I think, is to be secure within ourselves and to have some inner peace. And that's it's unfortunately not super common. I guess I shouldn't say unfortunately, because just like anything else, being secure within yourself can be a skill. And some people may have a natural inclination towards it, other people may not. So this is something we touched upon earlier, where if you are trying to posture or you've been told, and this is taught unironically sometimes by people who seem like they have a lot of authority, people who seem like they know what they're saying, and they might about a lot of things, but the idea of fake it till you make it, that's going to break you, in my opinion, because the idea, how do I handle it? I try to handle it by being able to face it unemotionally and just be like, oh, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, because a lot of people like to go from one extreme to the other. Either they let every single comment break them, when they're like, oh, he called me ugly. How dare you? How dare you body shame someone? Which I know that this is true, but this is like, it's there's this reaction towards this person with an anonymous profile photo. Not to say they didn't deserve it, but you can't do that at scale. You can't do that. You can do that when you have a couple hundred people, but when you have like when you're regularly getting this, you're going to implode. I say that out of concern for people. But then there's also this tendency where people are like, well, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to care. But then that can also lead to some arrogance, I think. Like for example, I think one of the reasons why it's easy for me to ignore comments about my appearance is because it's very easy to dismiss that this person doesn't really care. It's like it's a throwaway comment. They're doing it just to see if they'll get a reaction, and whatever. But if someone writes a 3-paragraph essay on like why this video in particular might be a little problematic. I don't love that word because a lot of things are problematic. But it's like, yeah, the way you hinted at this is not completely correct, and it might lead some people to misunderstand. And some people are very polite about it. Others are very rude about it. But even when they're rude about it, it's like, do you just want to ignore them and call them a troll and delete them and block them? You can. All right. But also you want to learn, right? You want to learn about yourself. And I'm like, maybe they do have a point. And it's a slippery slope because sometimes they don't. Sometimes it is just your insecurity speaking. So that's why it's a journey. This is why, while you hone your craft in anything, you also have to hone your inside craft. You have to be aware of yourself. So yes, one of the, if someone wants to do a takeaway of that, of how you can have more confidence as you approach and put yourself out there, is to slowly face your own insecurities and fears by asking if it's true. I have a video about this coming out hopefully this week or next week, which is going to make some people upset, but it doesn't, because it's touching on some topics, asking themselves, that I hope it doesn't make them too upset. But it's really, when you know that you're insecure about something, like if I put myself on social media and I'm like, well, you can talk to me about my appearance, I don't care, but don't mention my voice. Like if you mention my voice and you're like, oh, it's grating, I'm going to block you and delete you. These emotional reactions, you have to ask yourself, why am I insecure about this? Why do I really dislike it that much? And the thing is like, when people say that your voice is terrible, the thing you have to ask yourself, you don't have to tell anyone, is it true? Right? It's like, is it like, it's just some self-awareness. Beauty is subjective, of course, but it's good to be aware that 90% will find your voice grating. This is just a hypothetical, but I don't really care about my voice that much.
Yeah.
But a more real one would be, I might have a little bit of an insecurity around hurting people accidentally, right? But that's a thing where, like, if you give anyone a microphone, it's like, this will reach 1 million people, right? Which is small in the scope of things. Like Mr. Beast, all these like YouTubers and TikTok is like 1 million is small. If you just say the raw, like, you have to be very careful what you say, right? And then there's a little bit of an insecurity, like, what if I spend sometimes like 20 hours making a 30-second video, and it ruins someone's day? I'm like, man, it bugs me out. And you could argue it's on them, partially, but is there anything I could have done? And like, there's that little bit of insecurity where I spend a lot of time and it hurts someone. I usually not actually just strictly, in quotes, misinformation, because I try to verify and cite and do it. Like, I try to be very confident in the things I say, but the fact that it rubbed them the wrong way in a way that was misinterpreted, right? If it feels like I was trying to force them to do something when it was really just an idea they can try, something like that. I have an insecurity around that, and that's something that I'm slowly reconciling by asking myself, is this true? Do you know the things you're saying? Is this thing that you said that they're questioning, are you wrong about that? So yeah, we had to face a lot of our fears and insecurities as we go to social media or before, one way or the other.
Yeah, but I love the way that you handled it as more of an introspection of yourself. I think that's great. I think everything that happened, I always think like things that happen to us is something to look at negatively and positively. And when I love just taking a step back and going, is that true? Is that true for me? And maybe and sometimes there is an ounce of truth that you have to look at. Like, God, I'm reactive. I might need to look at that and maybe tone it back. So, so let me ask you about your comments. Like, do you read all the comments? Because that could take forever. And also, how do you respond? I mean, how do you select who to respond to and who not to?
Okay, so this is an interesting topic because early on, I think a lot of content creators can do this. I responded to every DM, every comment, everything, every email, everything.
Right.
I think early on, I think that's an important thing to do. Then at some point in the journey, as you grow, you have to decide when, and you don't want to be arrogant about it because you don't want to think you're more important than you are. It really has to be kind of a business decision and time management decision where you can't answer every email, DM, and comment, even though you want to. Nowadays, when I post a video, I usually spend the first 30 minutes to an hour checking the comments. I respond to a lot of them. If it piques my interest, I often try to respond to that. But then I tend to look away and I try to focus on work because how I see is I have limited time and energy and resources. And I have to dedicate them towards something. If I'm just like reading comments now, I'm just going to go watch TV. I don't care. And it's okay to unwind, but it's like if I am wasting my time in some other ways, and I might try to spend more time answering messages. But if it's a choice between that and creating more, then I'll spend time creating more. Because there are some questions where I can answer one person or I can answer 1 million people just by making a video. It's like, here's the answer to the question. And also, once again, delving into social media and how the algorithm has changed a little bit to the interest graph. As a video does better, when you make a good video in a sense that a lot of people want to watch it and keep watching it, it will reach people that haven't seen you before. When people haven't seen you before, there's a little bit less context on you. Like if I'm your friend and it's different when a friend tells you, yeah, that was wrong. And like that was really stupid what you did. I'll tell my friend that, and they'll tell me that was really stupid. I don't usually have good ideas, but that was a really stupid thing you just said. I'm gonna say it to my friend probably later tonight because he called me the other day. I was like, man, why would you say that? But the thing is, we can say this because we have context of each other. We know, and there's like an implication that we actually care about each other. However, when you reach someone and we reach more people with your good video, and they don't know you, there's more of a tendency to misunderstand. So as you reach this, people are going to be like, well, I don't like that you did this. I don't like that you said this. Of course, and it's understandable, and we should be a little bit empathetic towards that because they don't know us, right? Like I recently did a video where I gave my opinion on a supplement that I liked, which is pretty rare. But the whole point of the video was I tried it out for 3 months just to see the hype, and I was like, it's okay, but ultimately it does not replace a diet. I feel like a long-term solution is just to improve your diet. Which people who know me are like, oh, good, that's Hampton's opinion, and I'll use that as a factor into whether or not I want to buy it. However, some people who don't know will be like, well, he's trying to sell me something, but it's not. In fact, they didn't even watch the full video, right? But it's
right, yeah.
But at first I was like, man, it was like, maybe I should have been a little more careful. But after we revisit the idea, without the surge of adrenaline, which is why sometimes we get good ideas when we sleep on it because we revisit all the things that faced us, like a nasty comment on Twitter, or a friend saying like a snide comment. We revisit that when we're asleep and we don't feel that surge of adrenaline. We're like, okay, well, maybe it actually wasn't that bad. That's why we often get good ideas after we wake up.
I like that. And you were talking about the algorithm changing. Can you explain that? Like what did you like at first? We all think it's followers, it's likes, but what do you feel like now it is?
I'm pretty confident in this just because this is not only what I've observed, but also what these platforms have stated they're doing. So one of the things that people didn't immediately know about TikTok is because like the thing that's what was different about TikTok? You ask that to a regular person. It's like, oh, well, it's short videos. They have music and they're vertical. It's like, okay, that's cool. But one of the things that really made it splash, that really changed the culture, because when you get major multi-billion-dollar corporations like YouTube and Facebook and they own Instagram to make and adapt to short-form content, it's not just because it's vertical, they can take up more space. It's because TikTok was focused around the interest graph, which means instead of like, oh, I follow, like, think of Facebook. Like, oh, I follow my friend from high school. I follow my coworker or whatever. And that was interesting. And that was like the MySpace model where it's like, oh, you follow people. It's a social network, right? You follow people and you're like, oh, that's cool. Bobby's doing this. Although Jenny got married. That's cool, right? But what they found was that was not as interesting as following your interests, because you might like fencing, you might like fishing, you might like cooking, but your friends, well, first of all, your friends might not be into that, and second of all, your interests will change. So like you might be interested in that when you were 20, but when you're 25 and you're married and you have a kid now, you have different interests than the people you follow when you were 20. And what TikTok was good about was it's not about what you said you liked and what you want to follow. It's about what you actually like. So if I follow all these people about fitness, this is a thing where I'd actually deliver, where a lot of people will follow me because they think they want to be more fit. And they do. They want to be more fit. But like, yeah, I'll follow it because they think it's like a good choice for them. It's like, yeah, I'll follow this fitness person, and just like by osmosis of seeing him more, I'll be more fit. But if you do that, but you actually really like to watch like film theory videos, which is great, TikTok would be like, okay, so you say you want to watch more fitness, but you skip right past Hampton's videos, right? You actually want to watch film videos, which is totally fine. Like, this is not like, oh, I'm better than it, because yeah, some videos are more entertaining. And that's the thing that's happening. It is more interest-based and not follower-based. I can make a video, and if it's ho-hum, and even my followers, my dedicated followers, won't watch it, watch time is very important right now. So it's like, if you, and I don't want to say it's the only metric that matters. There's obviously things like caring about people, delivering a message, but within that confines, you have to make something people want to watch. And when you make something people want to watch, it will deliver it to more people. So I can make a video. I have like 7 million followers across social media right now. If I make a video that's then maybe like a couple 100,000 people will see it. If I make it really good, then several million people will see it, and it'll bring in new people. So it's not so, instead of saying like I follow hybrid calisthenics, I follow Tammy, I follow Mr. Beast, it's about I follow coffee, I follow fishing, I follow cooking. Okay, and then the algorithm will give you videos that are the best videos in that category, best by the metric of watch time. I should mention now in case this is when we have a discussion like this in person, people can ask me questions like, well, I disagree with this because it shouldn't just be about metrics. It shouldn't just be about views and watch time. What about a story that takes some time to tell? That all makes sense, but artistry and delivering a message has always been bound by something. Like if you are an author who wrote a book, you're like, okay, well, Hampton, I don't want to watch a stupid video that's like 30 seconds, because to really understand, you have to read this 500-page manual. That's cool. But okay, you are also bound by people knowing how to read and you knowing how to write. Okay, and like think about musicians. The great musicians, why do, when they're like, I want to write music to spread a message. Okay, why does it have to rhyme? There's like to spread a message doesn't have to rhyme. So then you have to pick words that rhyme with each other, right? We've always been bound by some kind of metrics, and like, I don't know if it's unfair so much as like, this is how we deliver the message. This is what people are interested in right now. So yeah, it might be cool if you could like force everyone to watch your 5-minute video in its entirety and think about it. But if it's boring, people won't want to watch it. And I understand that. I wish I could do the same thing. I'd be like, yeah, watch this thing. Here's full context of it. Please watch it. It will really help you. Some people will watch it. But unless it's entertaining and interesting, people won't watch it. They'll watch something else instead. And that's just the game we're playing.
So then, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's really not it's somewhat about people following you, but it's really about your videos getting out there and being seen by a lot of people, whether they follow you or not.
Yes.
Because the more people that see it, the more it's going to be in the traction of things.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
That's why and it took me a while to really hone this new model I'm doing, because if you look through my YouTube history, if someone wants to like stalk it, notice I used to post a lot more often, and then I kind of slowed down a little bit, then I tried to get more often again. I'm like, wait a second, something's wrong. And in the past 2 or 3 months, I've posted like 7 videos, which is like unheard of in like when I was first starting out. But I've gotten more views per month than I have in a while. And then that was with me slowing down. After I speed back up a little bit, I think we're going to hit some new records, which is exciting, even though I've made fewer content. One of the things that has changed is the recency effect. In 2017, these people who are saying like quantity is all that matters, no one really says that, but they're like quality is subjective, they say. It is, but the idea of recency, the importance of recency has definitely decreased. It's definitely decreased. In 2017, it was very important. YouTube had this feature that said new when a video came out. It said, this is new. This came out today. Because at the time, like vlog culture was really big. It's like, well, I want to see what's happening today. And it still has that effect. I think recency is a little bit important right now, because when I follow a creator and I watch all of their videos, and later on I'm like, oh, well, I want to see what they have to say today, not 5 years ago. I want to hear their opinion today. So there is a little bit of that. But when you make something good, it will last for years. It'll be delivered to a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. And you are on a lot of different platforms. Have
Yes.
you narrowed it down, or you still, like, you're on YouTube, Instagram, chat, Snapchat,
Mhm.
or not so much, or TikTok? Like, where do you kind of zone in?
There's
Because, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead and finish your question, because what?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, with YouTube, it's a little bit longer form. TikTok's limited, Instagram's limited. A lot of these are limited to under a minute, around a minute. So do you do longer videos for YouTube and then cut them up for the other channels? Or what is your thought when you're creating content, and how long? And I also notice your cuts are like, it's not just the video. There's cuts in those videos of different scenarios. So you've really... I'm curious, like, it takes a lot more time to edit videos when you have more stuff going on in them.
For sure. And we can delve into that a little bit. This is a filmmaking podcast, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, in my opinion, unless you are bound somehow by time and resources, or you have a very particular content style, which most people probably don't listening to this. Okay, they probably don't have this because I don't want to them to misunderstand. You should be on every platform. Okay, the people who tell you to focus on one platform, they're a lot of them are mistaken, in my opinion, or they have some kind of context that I don't have right now, where it's like, well, what about this? Maybe with that, but if you can do it well, there's only an upside to being on every platform. Only an upside. Okay, because here's the thing: we all have friends who are only on YouTube, only on Instagram, only on Facebook, or whatever. And you could be like, well, like, why aren't you on TikTok? That's like that. That's the thing. No. Okay, this is not how it works. We have to go where the consumer is. Some people are only on this meme app, nowhere else on social media. And if you're not there, you don't exist to them. Okay, which is okay if you want to focus on one thing, if you want to take some time to master this one craft. And I do kind of focus on I go through stages where I focus a little bit. I was like, oh, I want to like dabble with Instagram. I want to dabble with Facebook. I want to dabble with YouTube. By the way, YouTube does have YouTube Shorts right now. It's just as big as TikTok. Okay, in fact, it's going to. It might start to overtake TikTok. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. And certainly, there's a different culture for all of these platforms. Like, yeah, you can put the same video on there, but you're going to reach different people on TikTok, different people on Instagram, because people are there under different contexts. Now, slightly different topic about the cuts. Yes, there is kind of a trend right now where they think fast cuts will keep people's attention. That's part of the retention thing. It's like, oh, like if we only do the next 20 seconds of me talking, if it's just me talking, it's not going to be as interesting as me talking plus a different angle, me talking plus a stock video, me talking plus a little animation or whatever. It's just like, it's inherently more interesting usually. However, while I do fast cuts, especially for shorts, because you want to get a lot of information out quickly, people use it as a crutch for lack of storytelling. A lack of branding. If you have a good story, which is easier to establish during a longer video, or like when people know you a little bit, when you have a good story and you have an intriguing concept, you don't have to do a cut every second. You can if it's that particular style, just like we have rock songs and we have pop songs and we have opera, right? Like, like the people are going to use different instruments. There's going to be different composition in all of these things. So it's not just about the cuts, because some people can theoretically have like 100 cuts in a video and it won't do as well as someone just speaking to a camera if they have a very good concept. And like, I'm sure you know this. Like,
yes.
If let's say it's a 2-minute video or 3-minute video, it's like, I'm going to talk about push-ups. And it's like, oh, actually, and you put out a cup. This is not a great example for storytelling, but it's like, there's actually a reason this has a pink lid. And I'll tell you, but that's related to push-ups, and I'll get to that in a second. That's not a great example, but just that will add, just as much as a cut will add an extra 100 people, extra 5%, who stick around to find out why you have this cut. But that's kind of, it's kind of random though. Like, that's not a great example, but it's one example where people can clearly see, oh, that's interesting. And also just the idea, that's kind of like forcing it in. It's like, oh, find out at the end of this video. It's like, well, I'm just going to skip to the end of the video if you do that. Okay, it has to be interesting. At the same time, I think it was the director of Finding Nemo or someone like that who said, people say they want you to give them the answers right away, but they actually want to be led there. They don't only want to hear 4, they want to hear 2 plus 2. If the 2 plus 2 is interesting. That's the thing I had to learn over the past couple of years. It was like, oh, I'll just give everyone the answer right away. That's cool, but if you make the story leading up to that interesting, people will stick around.
Yeah. And then what do you edit on? Do you edit on your phone, or do you take it onto your computer and edit your film?
Premiere Pro. I think there is... So it depends on how you want to do it. Some people, if they just want to dance, if it's like quick influencer culture, I guess would be a way of saying it, then yeah, you can edit on your phone potentially forever. If you want to get into media, especially if you have a message to spread, you start off on your phone. You can edit on your phone. Very powerful tools nowadays. But ultimately, if you want to take it seriously, and you have the time for it, definitely learn to edit on your computer.
Yeah, and then do you put in the closed captions in Premiere, or do you put them in when you put them to TikTok? I think TikTok does that.
Premiere.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's like, because captioning is not where I want it to be right now on any
Right.
platform. It really isn't. Because the idea of like, oh, well, people can turn it on, turn it off. Some people are like, I'm so annoyed by your captions. You know what? I found it's one of those things where people will tell you what they think they want, but it's almost always better to actually burn in the captions right now. It might be different at some point in the future. Right now, I burn in all my captions just because I can adjust the font. People won't accidentally turn it off and be like, well, what are their captions? Like, well, you can turn it on. And they're like, well, it's too late. They already scrolled past it. They don't care because they were in a rowdy bar when your video first came up and they scrolled past it because they couldn't hear you and they didn't realize you could turn on captions. No, in my opinion, it's better to burn in it.
Well, yeah, and what I was told is that you should have captions because sometimes people are watching them at work and they're turning the volume down so that they can read it. So
Right.
yeah. So okay, let me ask you this about this is a marketing strategy to be on social media. What has your marketing strategy changed over time? Like, did you start with just I want to educate people, or was it to sell a product? What is your strategy then to now? Or connection?
Okay, so this is interesting because I feel like I went to school and I got a degree in international business, and to be honest, I've learned more on YouTube than I have in like the years of college, and that's really the truth. And if someone want I could have a serious discussion over why that is, but I feel like a lot of people fundamentally misunderstand marketing because they think it's either just sales or many other things. Not that I have some kind of ethereal knowledge of what it is, but let's talk about branding. That's always been the beginning, and like thankfully I had like generally good guides on what to do, and maybe just like what I want to do align with what I consider to be good branding. My original idea was because I was drawn into it with some like YouTube videos about like, oh, get an audience and then sell them a product. It's like, this is another reason why like social media algorithm change, that won't work as well. Because like if you make a video, if you I'm going to talk about business and then I'm going to sell you a course on how to start a business, right? If that video or announcement where you talk about your course isn't interesting in itself, it won't reach that many people. It won't reach your entire audience. It has to be interesting. So how it's changed is early on, I was like, so I'm going to start and I'm going to sell a product. As soon as someone left a comment and was like, hey, Hampton, this video actually really helped me. And I know you talked about your mom. I'm also taking care of my mother. I remember this first comment. His name was Kenneth. I still talk with him every once in a while. And that really shifted it. That really became where it's about a community. And I talked about it for a while. Community and building a community has become a buzzword and a buzz phrase across so many social media platforms that I stopped using it because it's become cliche. And a lot of people say they want a community, but they actually want a cult. They say, oh, we're building a community here. We're not. It's not just about we're building a community, but they actually want a cult that worships them in everything they do. And how dare you say anything bad against me, your cult leader? No. And we can differentiate cult and community a little bit extra, but I think. So like a group of people, so like here's my marketing strategy. It's like a group of people who tend to watch the hybrid calisthenics videos working towards a general goal. What do these people want? What do they want? It has to start with like what they are working towards. So, well, they want to be a little healthier, but maybe they don't have access to the fitness knowledge that's out there. And that can surprise some people in the fitness industry. It's like, well, there's already so much information from people who are extremely well licensed and certified and educated, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but it's also not interesting to them. Not everyone wants to read like the 300-page textbook on resistance training, right? So we have to break it down into the ways people want. That is a product we're giving. It's not like something where you have to buy, add a card and stuff. But this product that we're creating, people are watching, is information. Beyond that, what else do they need? It's like, well, they might need fitness equipment. It's like, okay, what are some issues with fitness equipment? It's like, well, they don't know what's good. I'm like, okay, well, if I can just source what's good, okay, maybe change it a little bit, then we can offer it at a reasonable price. People are like, okay, that's cool. A reasonable price, by the way, isn't always the cheapest price. That's people who are used to Amazon are like, well, this thing is like a cent cheaper and looks very similar. Go ahead and get that. Go ahead and get that. Right. So that's more like a business discussion we can get into. But there's more to it than the price. And then so what else would they need? It's like, well, some people don't watch social media, but they want their parents don't, but they want them to be healthy. but you only do social media information. What else? Okay, so well, that's why we made a book, for example. It's like, well, this is the same information, very similar information to what's on the website. It's for free, but if you want a book, we'll give you a book. So, and some people are like, well, I had this. I always remember because I use this example all the time. We had a Gen Z member in our Discord who's like, Hampton, why are you writing a book? Nobody reads books. I'm like, oh, really? It's like, no, it's like, yeah, nobody reads books, Hampton. It's like, so it's like, you can see like the world he lives in, which is, I understand. It's like, I'd rather have a app than a book. I'm like, so this is interesting. I was like, so you have the website, which is mobile optimized, by the way, mobile optimized and fairly fast that you have, but you'd rather have an app. He's like, this is different. And it makes sense, right? It sounds crazy, but it's not. How many people use the Facebook browser version? Relatively few compared to the app. The app is just slightly more convenient.
Yep.
Right? So, okay, it's going to cost us like $100,000, $200,000, but we'll make, no, really. Or so we're going to make an app just so you like it, right? So, like, this is my marketing is, we have a community. You can either cultivate one on purpose or just building by talking about things that you like and notice what they want. Or you can like kind of cultivate the exact thing you want. And then you ask yourself, what can we do to help them towards this goal? And then you offer these as options. That's the thing that I think people misunderstand is like, well, you have to buy this. And people get angry. Like, well, I'm not going to buy this. Okay. If you don't want it, don't get it. No, and I mean that in the most polite way. Because it's like, if we have a book, that guy that was talking about no one reads books, I don't want to sell him a book. I really don't. Okay. I would give him a book maybe, but I don't want him to spend his money on something he's not going to use.
Right.
So we make options. That's my marketing.
Yeah, I like that. I like giving people options to and educating them on what they could do. Like I see that you have that pull-up bar, and then you have the rings. Mm-hmm. Those are really cool. And then you also give examples through your videos on how to use it. Right. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So a big part of my marketing, this is a little bit more tactic-based, but I stand by this, is once again the options. People are like, well, this is a little bit too expensive. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine, because here's a way you can make it for free. That's the thing that a lot of people, that explodes their minds. Traditional marketing, they're like, why would you do this? I'm like, no, I'm going to show you. I made a video. It's like, here's how you make this stuff for free at home, if you want to do it. And some people have. But a lot of people look at it and they're like, well, this seems complicated. I'd rather spend this money. It's like, that's fine too. Once again, I don't want to posture. I don't want to hide. I don't want to fake anything that, this is a process. We're like, we could make an argument. We all hide behind a slight mask. But in this case, I want to minimize the amount that we hide or any kind of misunderstanding. And so yes, you can do this for free because it's true. You can use a tree branch instead of the gym rings. You can use PVC pipe. So yeah, I give people options. Part of my marketing is like anything that we have, I try to offer a cheap alternative or a way they can make it for free at home.
Now, do you have anything on your website for subscribers? Like, what are your offerings? Do you actually coach people?
I don't personally coach people right now. I wish I could, but it is something that takes a significant amount of time, and it's not something I can personally do right now. Because if I want to continue, I can, but it would slow down everything else I'm doing. There is nothing on the website that's paid. Well, I mean, like, I link to some of our products, but it's not paid right now. I am working on something that might start to manifest later this year, or maybe next year. And like, this is something we can do very quickly, but I want to do it really well. And that would be hybrid coaching or hybrid training, where we have some trainers who are very experienced, they're very friendly, and are great people who work with us. And they know the hybrid routine because they regularly answer people's questions. I was like, well, why don't we just offer coaching through them? And that's one of the ways that we've started to change to online training, where you don't have to go to a gym. Some people want that, and that's great. Yeah. I completely understand. But some people, they want to exercise at home or by themselves, and they don't need a trainer watching them, counting their reps. They want to do it themselves, and it's like, hey, here's my form. I'll send it to you. And they're like, yeah, straighten out your back a little bit. It's like, oh, pull your shoulders back. It's like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, what about this? Should I eat this? It's like, oh, yeah, do this instead. All it takes is emails and like maybe an app. So that's one of the things I want to start to offer is a good coaching program. Once again, for people who want it. And we're going to talk about pricing. And this is one of those things to where we have the people now where we can do it now. But if I want to do it well, And I want to do it at scale for maybe a couple thousand people. I don't know how many people would sign up for it if we did a monthly subscription to that. But it wouldn't be a subscription to an app or something. It'd be to a service. Because I think people are happier with that. Because if I spent literally $1 million on an app, okay, building the best app in the world, like I don't know what we would spend $1 million on, but like an app that's really, really good. People would still gripe about paying $1 a month for it. And like I understand I can ignore them, but I also empathize. I'm like, yes, we're used to software being free. However, if it's a service, then we could offer and people will understand and they'll be happier with it, I think. So that's something I'm looking into. But right now, no subscription, but something we're seriously looking at implementing. And maybe like an ad-free version, like if they want to spend like $1 a month to get no ads. And if you don't want to spend it, just get an ad blocker.
Yeah, that's true. So do you want to share about what you're doing now, any new projects and anything that you'd like to share?
We are currently working on getting the book out. And right now, that's that was my major project for towards the end of last year and early this year. Once again, it's one of those things to where I could have just done it. I could have just paid someone to do it and get it out, but I wanted to spend extra time making it good by my own metric. And it's really spending some extra time thinking about it. And that's something we have pre-launched and it should be in stock and start shipping out our very first batch either today or later this week. And that's something I'm excited about because it's something that can reach a lot of people who are not on the internet as much, not on social media as much. And then after that, we'll start to turn that into an app, and then maybe a coaching service, different things. So there's the different projects that I have going in tandem.
Can you tell us a little about what's in the book, what they'll get if they buy it?
Well, so I definitely don't want to try to sell someone something they don't want. So here's exactly what's in there. So I have a fitness routine called the Hybrid Fitness Routine, and it's available on hybridcalisthenics.com for free. And that's one of the things that I want to keep for free. But when we did that, and we have a thriving community regularly doing it every day, some people asked, well, can I have this in a book? And that's why I first started thinking, yes, we can. And originally, it was just kind of like charts and pictures and stuff. But, for people who are watching this on video, it's basically all the exercises that we have. And I was like, well, we could do that, but what if someone wants to give it to their family or friends? Like, well, we better hire some trainers who work with me because I think differently and they think differently. And if we have a bunch of people working together, maybe we can get something that's a lot more understandable. So we have an introduction method, and we have, troubleshooting, things like that, and the routine. So the idea is that you can hand it to someone, and it's a way they can get healthy, fit, and strong with just their body and gravity. It's, in a way, it is a new thing, but it's also an old thing because it is the routine optimized a little bit because we spent so long on it. Now it's actually more up to date than the routine on our website, so we need to start updating that too. And then we're going to put this in different forms. Some people will only want to read it as a book. Some people will only use it as an app. What else? I mean, maybe we can make it into an AI trainer or something one day, which might be a thing. That'd be neat. So that's something that I'm working on right now, and I'm excited about it. It's actually going to take some time to get it into full stock because we had to order a batch. People pre-ordered it, and now it's almost sold out. And we're like, well, I have to get more. And I want to update this. So it's something I want to start rolling out, available on our website if anyone wants to check it out.
So then you have to send them out, right? Or are you going through a company that when they order, then it gets shipped out somewhere else?
Okay, no. So it's not print on demand. I self-published, self-printed all of this. However, we have 2-day shipping within the U.S. So it is fulfilled with Shopify fulfillment. So they ship it out the same day, and there's 2-day delivery for many places in the U.S. Now, I should add this internationally. And I'm trying to add value to people who just want to do a book at some point. So it's not just about my thing. I don't really go on podcasts to sell things. One of the things I run into is international shipping. People in Australia are like, man, it costs like $50 to ship to me. I'm like, yeah, because it cost me $50 to ship to you, right? Like that's one of the things that people don't completely understand. Where they're like, they think the money, they just know they're paying the money, which I completely understand. But they don't think that the money isn't going to the company; it's going to the shipping company. I'm like, oh, okay. So one of the ways we're trying to work around that is I'm also putting this on Amazon. It won't be spiral bound, but Amazon can print it in Australia and ship it to you in Australia. So that's one of the things that we're working on.
Oh, that's great. And then your company, you were talking about other trainers. How many people are a part of your team?
So our full team has around like 7 people right now, which seems small, and we can certainly hire out. But I found that for what we're doing, a lot of these things can be outsourced. Like for example, who knows the Shopify warehouse? There's a lot of like they're going to ship out several hundred orders tomorrow, and then eventually it's going to be several thousand orders. I found we can outsource that, but our core team is about 7 people, and our trainers we have 2 right now, probably bringing on a third later on this year. And if we do the coaching thing, it's going to have to be 10, 20. And I kind of sigh, not because because that bothers me, but because it's more people to manage and more people that I want to care for, more people I want to make sure they're happy. And that's a whole infrastructure. Then we need a head trainer. And so that's a major project. And that's one of the reasons why it will take some extra time if we want to do it well.
Right. And are these people all locally, or they can be anywhere in the United States?
Anywhere in the world.
Wow.
Anywhere in the world, because once again, it's online training, right? So you can do, well, I mean, with what we're doing, like my assistant lives in Kentucky. Okay, I live in Arkansas. So we can work around the world. There's not that many things I would need someone in person for. Every once in a while, I need someone to hold a sign or hold an object, and I'll just get a friend to do it in person.
Now, all your social media, do you do yourself, or did you hire out to edit your videos and do other things at this point?
Well, I like doing things myself, and I think it's important. So in college, it's interesting. They said people don't hire generalists; they want to hire specialists, which I completely understand. But I always wanted to be a generalist, and the context they left out was that generalists hire specialists really well, because if you can do a lot of things somewhat okay, then you know who to hire.
Right.
So
yeah,
I edited all my videos for the first few years. Last year around May, I had someone email me, and I really liked how they worked, and we started doing videos together. So now I hire someone to do the editing. However, I am the person who does the final edit. So I have him make all the changes, and I'm like trying to make it this thing, but we're still working on carrying the final 5 or 10%. Where he'll spend 10 hours on an edit, and then I'll still sit down and like it's done in quotes, and then I'll still spend 2 hours making. I want this tweak, because some things I can't quite feel yet, but I know makes it better. Like an extra zoom in, extra this, like it just changes the story, and I'm like, oh, it changes the vibe of it. I'm like, so I still do that. I would like to get to the point where he or someone else can do the whole process.
Yeah. It is kind of hard to let go of something that you do. I mean, even though it's a lot more work and you only have so much time in the day and you have to, but there's something to the personal, well, especially the personal connection to your videos. But I guess if you're having somebody else edit it, that's, something different. But you still got to look at it.
Right. Well, no, that's one of those things, and I can say this pretty confidently for some creators. For almost every creator, it seems like no one else can edit you. It seems like nobody else can do that job, and I completely understand. But it's one of those things that takes time. It is not the reason why it seems so hard is because you hire one person and they don't know your style within the first video. And you're like, well,
right.
of course, I thought it wasn't going to work. It's not going to work. No. If you want to really scale, you don't have to. Some people love to edit their own stuff, which is great. But if you really want to scale, it is worth it to find an editor, because when you can film and you want to make a lot of content and you're spending 20 hours on this, you can continue filming, continue doing other things while your editor edits, and then you can still make the final adjustment. A lot of it is coaching and adapting. You're like, here's what I like, and then you learn to work together. So it's important to find someone that you like working with.
Now, how do you share your files? I mean, do you have like Google Drive? What do you do?
Yeah, the first few times it was like WeTransfer or something, but
right.
If you're doing it all the time, which we are now, Google Drive tends to work really well. There's one Google account where I paid, it's like an extra $5 a month or something for 100 gigabytes, and I just put it on there, and then after he downloads it, I delete it and repeat. It's worked really well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Well, cool. Is there any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with on content creation?
Well, where are most of your listeners at in their journey? Are they getting started? Are they halfway? Are they interested in just filmmaking, period? Or are they just social media content creators? Give me some context.
Yeah. These are my podcast is really for the person that wants to learn about positions and may not have any knowledge of it. So for a content creator, it might be somebody who's saying, hey, I'd like to get some content out there, but I don't really know the first thing about what I should do or how I should be. Like you were talking about branding, which I think is really excellent. Maybe we talk about just a tip on branding. How does one brand themselves when they may not know what their brand is yet? How do they figure that out?
So a few different things. So that's two slightly different questions, I think, but I'll give context on both of them. First of all, how to start is you don't want to be the person coming in and you're the singer. Think of it like you're the singer for a full orchestra. You don't want to come in, and just start singing. You want to listen for a little while, okay? Understand the pitch, understand the tempo, and then you start singing. Assuming you can sing. The metaphor doesn't completely work, but actually it does. It does. So if you really want to break it down, yes. So go on these social media platforms. Just start scrolling. And I'm not kidding. Like 50 hours, like 30 hours, or like just like it doesn't have to be a day. Okay, like do like 30 minutes a day. Your job, if you're serious about branding, if your job is just to scroll through TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, 30 minutes, set a timer. Okay, and be like, okay, cool, and then do that for a few months, and you're like, okay, and then you'll learn. Like write down your thoughts beforehand and write down your thoughts after 2 months. You'll be like, okay, this is interesting. I understand the culture of what's working there now. This is subconscious. It's kind of just like how kids watch how grown-ups talk and how they act and how they move. We have to really absorb that. It's like, okay, this cut is slightly too long here. We want a little faster here. We want this. And you'll naturally have your own style that you can represent to others. So first, you just do that. First, you get context before you move. And what's your brand? You can just start, I think. I think a lot of people, especially in the context of social media, if you're not sure what your brand is you. Everything you believe in. You listen to people on YouTube like, it's off-brand for me to talk about football when my channel is really about music. No, once again, algorithm-based. Keep it interesting. But if people know all different things about you, that is your brand. That is your brand. And then you can kind of hone it a little bit. You can be like, okay, so I have a personal brand, but I also have a fitness brand. I also have this. There's different ways you can split it. But first get context, and then just start, and then hone over time.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Oh, thank you. I hope everyone got value out of it. I hope they liked it.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TammyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?